Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Today I am joined by Tom Palladino, but just real quick before we get into this, I've got to go ahead and drop our sponsor, which is Nadeau Shave Company. Um, I keep saying this, it is without a doubt the best shave I've ever had. It is not this Chinese made multi blade razor from the big shave companies. It's a single blade safety razor, just like your dad or your grandfather used to use. And there's a reason why they used them for so long. It is entirely just unmatched. I'm a person that has sensitive skin. My skin gets angry at the sight of a razor. This I have no problem with. It is without a doubt the best shave you'll ever have. That is NadeauShaveCo.com, NadeauShaveCo.com. Use promo code RISE15 for 15% off your order. I mean, these guys have the balls to sponsor this show, so they must be a good sponsor. Nadeau Shave Company, where tradition beats modernity. Tom, how's it going?
I am well. Thank you for the invitation, Jacob.
Yes, of course. Thank you for coming. So we kind of started touching on this, but I'm curious. Where did your interest in Nikola Tesla start? How did that start?
That's a long story. Nikola Tesla, the great scientist Nikola Tesla. Why have I concentrated on his career and his findings? Tesla was the first man that I know of to harness scalar energy. He began his career with AC electricity. He ended his career with scalar energy, what he was calling radiant energy. I was fascinated with both his career as an electrical genius as well as his career as a scalar energy pioneer. I would read about Tesla as a youngster. At the age of 10 and 11, I was introduced to his works, and I would devour whatever literature was available. I knew instinctively at that young age, call it a gift of mysticism, that Tesla was working later in his life with something besides AC electricity. Tesla was working later in his life with massless energy, non-physical energy. Really, it's the spirit energy of the sun and the stars. So I can trace this back to my youth, age 10 and 11, reading about Tesla, understanding these principles, at least having the ability to conceptualize these principles, and then working my way throughout my life to the point that I have engineered instruments, scalar energy instruments, that control that spectrum of energy.
So for anyone who's not familiar, do you want to let my audience know who Nikola Tesla is? Why is he? I'm sure they've probably heard his name. Most people have, but they don't know why he's important.
Tesla gave us the modern day age. Tesla and Edison were contemporaries, but it really was Tesla who had the greater prowess and the greater understanding of electricity. Edison wanted DC electricity. Tesla wanted AC electricity. Today, the world is powered by AC electricity. Only batteries are powered by DC electricity. So what's the point? It's really Tesla who gave us the modern day age. And other inventors, Westinghouse, Edison, really owe a great deal to Tesla, who paved the way. He was really the pioneer in this research of AC electricity. So in a nutshell, after we look at Tesla's 300 or 400 inventions, just a prolific inventor, and we see how those inventions have been incorporated into our fabric of life, we realize it was Tesla, the preeminent scientist, who gave us the modern day age. The reason we have this ability today is really attributed to Tesla first and foremost, and then other inventors.
So, how do you feel about Edison? I know there's a lot of people who are, on the Edison was a fraud bandwagon. Are you amongst those, or
no?
Do you think
Edison was a hardworking man. And he was an inventor, and many of his discoveries benefit us today. But to be blunt, he's no match for Tesla. Tesla, nobody, I don't know any scientist that can compare to Tesla, including Edison. Again, both men were contemporaries. Both men have given us a great many benefits, but nobody outshines Tesla.
Um, why do you think that like we that this is kind of unrelated, but I'm just curious is why do you think we don't have people in society quite like that anymore?
Mm, you're right. Tesla was a gift from God, and again, his understanding of nature is really unmatched to this day. And you want to ask yourself, why was he such the exception? Many times Tesla would remark he could see an invention in his mind. He wouldn't have to put anything on paper. He would not have to even visit his laboratory. God would give him this design, this intellectual vision, if you will. And Tesla could see an invention. Then he could go to the laboratory and create an instrument, a device from scratch. How can you do that? I can't do that. So Tesla, he was unique. And why don't we have other Teslas today? There's nobody can come close to him. So for some reason, God chose him.
A divine intervention. I truly believe that as well. Um, it just it's really odd what he was able to create seemingly out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and I can't think of another explanation. I don't think that that's the important point of like where did this come from. The fact is that it's here.
Yes. Yes.
So also for anyone who doesn't know, do you kind of want to break down what happened to him in the latter part of his life, where his research went, uh, and the final years of his life?
Yeah. After a distinguished career with AC electricity, Tesla, somewhere along the road, developed scalar energy instruments. Now, these are free energy instruments. Behind me, I have a scalar energy instruments. Now, when Tesla was working within this realm of free energy, he created many energy enemies. This energy, if it's free or inexpensive in operation, can no longer serve the elite, to be quite candid. So Tesla, when he was initially starting, he actually was working as an assistant to Thomas Edison, but after a while they had a falling out. Thereafter, Tesla's illustrious career really took hold. And later in his life, Tesla was no longer interested in AC electricity. All of it, all of the inventions, all of the discoveries later in his life were focused around radiant energy, or what I call scalar energy. Now, again, to make this very clear, radiant energy, scalar energy is free energy. The sun and the star are the power plants. Behind me, I have a miniature star. This instrument is on, it's functioning. It's so powerful that if I hold up a light bulb close to the instrument, it will illuminate under the influence of scalar energy.
It's so cool.
So this is the ambient energy of scalar energy. What I have in my laboratory is a miniature star. And again, I've been at this all of my life. Now, if the audience has never been exposed to this, I understand. This is new and groundbreaking. I'm one of the few scalar energy researchers today that has an operating instrument that can actually harness and direct scalar energy. So we're going to speak about that other energy today, not electricity, the free energy of the sun and the stars. Why was Tesla, if you will, why was his career besmirched? Why was Tesla undermined later in his life? On account of the fact that free energy, scalar energy, is a threat to the military industrial complex. And this is why today Tesla sadly is a footnote in history.
So, from my understanding, Tesla he pretty much died penniless
Yep.
and alone
Yep.
from what I understand,
Right.
which is just heartbreaking considering the contribution that he had. Uh, the government came in. I'm not sure if this was before or after. I believe it was after he had died
Right.
and took all of his writings.
Correct.
The US government came in,
Yep.
took everything, and has anything been released since then, or
No,
has it just never been seen again?
it's never been seen again. People have
That's
petitioned the United States government, and you have to ask yourself, why is it that the day that Tesla died, the federal government of the United States stole all of his equipment, stole his notes, stole his entire laboratory, and has never released that information to the general public? What's the point? Why such a draconian measure? I think
yeah.
it's kind of obvious. Tesla was on to free energy. Free energy will change the economic order. Now, keep in mind the robber barons of that day, the Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, they were all heavily invested in coal and steel, in AC electricity, in the railroad. And free energy would have impacted all of those industries.
Well,
And
and it
on
would
count,
now today.
yes, it will. Of course, it will. And that's why there's still this, if you will, aversion to free energy devices by those in power. They realize that free energy will change the working order. It will change the economic order. There was a time that Tesla had a laboratory in Colorado Springs, and he was able to illuminate light bulbs at a distance. Now, I want to be able to repeat his success. I want to be able to illuminate a light bulb at a distance. Presently, I can hold a light bulb in my hand and pass it by the instrument and it illuminates. But I'd like to do that at a distance of 500 or 1,000 miles. If I can illuminate a light bulb at a distance, that's the beginning of the end of the energy crisis. Now, keep in mind,
Yeah.
when I work with this instrument, I'm creating a double helix or a scalar energy waveform. So the power plant really is the sun and the stars. I'm simply tapping into that double helix formation. And when I propagate this energy, you don't need a substation. You don't need satellites. The universe is the infrastructure. So it's free energy from the sun and the stars, and the infrastructure is free. Well,
Yeah.
you can't beat free. And when something is free, it will change the economic order. And that's the consideration moving forward.
So, in your opinion, I mean, obviously that this isn't mainstream knowledge, or at least it it seems like it is out there.
Yes.
Why is it not more prevalent? Obviously, there is a vested interest in keeping actual green or free energy suppressed,
Yeah.
which is insane because it seems as though the entire world is in a climate hysteria.
Yep.
Although what is mainstream as far as the climate and energy just seems like communism. It just or just like totalitarian government, whatever form it may take. It just seems like a way like I can pay more money to the government and all of a sudden the ice caps are going to stop melting, which I mean they're not, but it just there's this fake garbage that's being pushed down our throats, and
Yep.
then there's what you have even just briefly demonstrated with just two simple light bulbs to be out there. Why is it truly just that it's suppressed?
It is suppressed. I've been at this. I've had a public website now for 12 years, and my work is suppressed. I never thought it'd be so difficult to promulgate my discoveries, but it's very difficult. And I'd say you can call it the algorithms are against me, or I don't receive any attention from big media, or call it what you will. There, there's something quite strange with my discoveries and the advances that I've made, and I'm following in the footsteps of Tesla's. I don't claim to be the first one to have discovered these principles. Why isn't this promulgated? Why aren't we moving forward to some type of alternative energy in which we don't have to rely upon fossil fuels? That wind power has its limitations. Nuclear, some people are not in favor of nuclear. Why not associate with the free energy of the sun and the stars. So, and
Yeah.
you're right. At this point in history, when people are saying that the source of energy is limited, it is because we're working with a finite source, and that it's dangerous, yes, in some cases, and that it pollutes, yes, and that there should be a more equitable way of distributing this energy, okay. So why don't we turn our attention to scalar energy that solves all of those problems, that in consummate fashion solves those problems? Well, ask yourself that question. I have many times, and the only answer is that there's an active suppression.
So it's interesting to me. I think about this every time I pay my power bill, is that there is a blatant monopoly.
Sure.
I don't have multiple electric companies that I can go choose from.
Yeah.
Um, there's one. There's one in my area. That's it. It doesn't matter if I like it, if I don't. That's it.
Mhm.
And I think when you realize that, it kind of becomes a lot more apparent that there is a vested interest to keep that cash flow coming.
Yep. Yep. And this is the marriage between government and big business. Most public utilities have the blessing of the government. And whether you like it or not, this is our status quo. This is the world that we live in. Now, what if we had a new source of energy that was completely safe? Scalar energy is non-physical. There's no electrons or protons involved. It's information. And the energy could be tapped from any location in the world. It's free energy that permeates the universe. Well, let's move forward. That seems to be the logical choice. Well, again, ever since Tesla and other scalar energy theorists and inventors have presented their work, it's never gained traction. So that's rather peculiar. Now that's strange to me. So, some
Yeah.
if somebody places something on TikTok or YouTube, it can go viral in a day or two. Okay, whereas an invention, some type of technology that could benefit 8 billion people on the planet, is suppressed. That's rather strange.
It really is. It's just I think it kind of shows the power of some of these people
Yeah,
in the ability to keep people ignorant.
yeah,
Um
you're right.
which which historically tracks with certain organizations or certain governments that want to keep the thumb on top of the people.
Yeah,
Otherwise, then their legitimacy disappears. My personal opinion: on government can only come through the threat of violence and theft. So otherwise, the state apparatus can't exist.
you're right, and you're right. It's coercion, and sadly, the people have allowed this to go on, and they never question that apparatus. You're absolutely right.
So you're telling me that if I vote harder, it's going to work this time?
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, and I don't mean to be snide, but we need better political leaders.
Yes.
I look at some of the leaders today throughout the world, and I say to myself, I would never hire them if I was an employer. I don't know if they could run a business. I don't know if they could run a library. I don't know if they could manage a lemonade stand. There's some political leaders that are just inept.
Yes. And for whatever reason, we put them on a pedestal.
Wow, just
So
inept.
so one thing I wanted to do with this interview is outside of just the basics, I kind of wanted to stay away from doing research into scalar energy, just so I could, along with my audience, have you teach all of us.
Mhm.
So the
Okay.
first question: what is scalar energy?
Yeah. I I believe it's divine energy. Now, consider my hypothesis. Scalar energy drives the sun and the stars. If you look at the billions and trillions of galaxies, where does the power come from? Where does the light come from? I come from a Christian background. tell you that that power, that light is God. And God is the source, if you will, the creator of scalar energy. So something has to create this light. You have to have an uncreated being to create material, a material universe. Long story short, I believe I'm working with an energy, a supreme force, scalar energy, that is the initial energy, the driving energy of the universe, whereas electricity and magnetism are derivative, are the converted subset, if you will, of scalar energy. Tesla, when he was performing his research with high voltage AC electricity, there were times that he could transition from AC electricity into scalar. And he said the release of energy, what he recognized in the scalar dimension, far exceeded the energy output of the electromagnetic dimension. So there was a time in Tesla's career that he abandoned AC electricity because he discovered the other dimension. There's two energies, there's two dimensions. And once you find your way into this scalar energy dimension, you can do incredible things that you cannot achieve with electricity and magnetism. And looking at Tesla as a youngster and reading his notes, I knew instinctively, I knew he was not working with electricity anymore. If you look at Tesla's inventions, he had a tower in Colorado Springs, a scalar energy tower, and he had a tower in Long Island. And those towers were motionless. There were no moving parts. I'm going to show the audience part of my instrument here. And if you look closely at this instrument, there's no moving parts. There's no armature. Okay? There's no induction motor. That vacuum tube allows me to create a scalar energy environment. So if you look at that instrument, there's no moving parts. So what's the point? Where's the kinetic energy coming from? Okay, where's the motion coming from? It's coming from the sun and the stars. The kinetic energy is from the sun and the stars. Tesla deduced that. He was right. I have an instrument that captures the energy of the sun and the stars. There's no induction motor. There's nothing moving here. This is the beauty of working with scalar energy. You can go away from motors. You can get away from windmills. You can get away from wires. You don't have to rely upon satellites. It's a ready built information system. Scalar energy, this paradigm, is a pre-existing energy intelligence paradigm. You don't need to create anything. You don't have to put up a string of wires. You don't need step-down transformers. It's all there. And when Tesla built his tower in Colorado Springs, he demonstrated that he could illuminate light bulbs at a distance. And he also demonstrated that he could create artificial lightning bolts. Lightning always initiates its scalar energy. Later, Tesla built his tower, another scalar energy tower in Long Island, New York. And if you look at that tower, there's no electrical wires leading into the tower or leading out of the tower. And he did not have the access to a power plant. So what's the point of putting a power tower, if you will, in Long Island, out in the country at the turn of the century, if you don't have access to a power plant? You didn't need a power plant. The Wardenclyffe Tower was the power plant, or it assumed it captured the power from the sun and the stars. Now, isn't that much easier just to capture the energy of the sun and the stars than to drill for oil, to dig for coal, to create some type of thermonuclear reaction and have to monitor some type of nuclear reactor plant, or to put up a series of wind farms, windmills? Okay, I understand that's the present status quo, but it's so expensive. It's so
And it's
dangerous.
garbage.
Yeah,
The
it's inefficient. It's inefficient.
Yeah, the amount of resources needed to make a windmill, to mine all the products for a solar panel, all of these things, it negates the purpose.
Yeah, yeah. So we see how if we can just capture the energy of the sun and the stars, we can do away with what I would call this mechanistic system, this system of material, the use of material, the use of fuel to create this system. and then the harm to the environment and the harm to our health. Why do I advocate scalar energy? It's not only free, but there's no chemicals involved with this instrument. I simply tap into pure sunlight, divine light. So eventually the world is going to pay attention and revisit the work of Nikola Tesla, and we will reinvent what he discovered, and we will change the social, the economic order therefrom.
Now, there's two political questions that I have about this because I know somebody out there is probably going to be curious about this. First of all, it is free energy, but is it cost effective to build these devices?
Mhm. Right now, no, because it's taken me a lifetime. But once we can establish how we can take this energy, and if I could illuminate one light bulb, eventually, if I can illuminate 1,000,000 light bulbs with this instrument, then there's your gain. If you start with 1x and you wind up with 1,000,000x, well, the gain is 1,000,000x, and that's what I propose. This is what
Yeah.
Tesla was about to demonstrate at Wardenclyffe at his tower in Long Island, New York. One tower could have easily illuminated, I believe, every household in the United States, because you don't need wires. It's an unlimited source of energy. You could just broadcast that energy anywhere throughout the United States. So it's a new way of thinking. You cannot think of this as you do with the electrical grid, where you have to have
Yeah.
so many substations because the power degrades, or you need to in many ways avoid that paradigm. There's no loss of the signal here. There's no entropy. So you could have one scalar energy tower and you could power the entire world because you can broadcast this energy anywhere in the world. Here, I'm going to demonstrate. Nothing can stand in the way of this energy. I'm going to hold up a wooden chopping board. This is a culinary board. If I place this culinary board close to the instrument, the energy will find its way through the wooden board and still illuminate the light bulb. So the wooden board, no physical barrier is going to prevent scalar energy from illuminating an object. So
Wow.
this energy can pass through the ocean. It could travel through the earth. So
So
it's quite different. This is not electricity.
yeah. So theoretically, we could have the ability, like there wouldn't have to be too many of these towers.
Right.
I mean, from a strategic standpoint, you might want to have a couple just to be able to, if you don't want one attacked from another
Right.
nation.
Right.
Um, so currently it is incredibly expensive, but it still seems like you could make money off of this. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like even if with this out to the worlds, it's confusing to me because I've always had the thought that these people who are so corrupt that keep these sort of things suppressed,
Mhm.
knowing economics the way that I do, you would make just as much or more money acting ethical in the long run.
Mhm.
But it seems as though corruption is more of a instant gratification thing.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I would agree with you. This is why I stick to my posture. I have a grassroots effort, and I don't associate with corrupt governments and corrupt corporations. I want nothing to do with that corruption.
Yeah.
My prediction is ultimately progress will win, and progress will see its way. The people have to see the benefits of scalar energy. Once they realize the benefits, then we'll see this paradigm shift, and it's happening right before our eyes right now. I think many people realize they've been lied to. I think many people realize that many of these proposals in the past 5, 10, 15 years have not worked. If it doesn't work, it's not going to work in the future. So if we complain about policy today, whether it's government policy or policy in industry, and that policy is not working, well, then we need a new policy. You need a new approach. If it's broken, fix it. And by fixing it, you might have to decide upon a new course of action.
Yeah, it's either worked, and in which case we're all good, or it hasn't worked, and so we need to correct our course. And
Yeah,
it's very clear. It Whatever is happening now, it might have worked, but and I mean at one point in time the steam engine was an incredible innovation. And it
yeah,
just seems like ever ever
yeah,
since ever since fossil fuel engines, we've just stopped innovating. And
you're
I
right.
know all of this kind of trickles down to, third world countries. So maybe the third world can't exactly hop on all of this immediately, especially because it's been suppressed. It's a little bit more expensive, but we can do it. And then it all trickles down. So eventually, I mean, the whole world would be on this.
You're right. That's one of my designs to keep going so that someday God will give me the wisdom so that I can illuminate a city with this. I'm going to have to demonstrate that. And once I can demonstrate that scalar energy can be used at a distance and perform that a function of to run a motor or to illuminate at a distance, then we're going to make some significant progress. And then the world will take note and demand this type of technology. Right now, there really is not that much of a demand because in all defense of people, they don't understand this. It's been suppressed. Once people
Yeah.
understand what Tesla was trying to achieve, and indeed Tesla was successful, then people are going to say, well, if Tesla did it over 125 years ago, why aren't we doing it today?
Yeah. So my question is at this point, so we know that the government came in and took his papers. So how is any of this known?
Yeah, good point. Good point. We don't understand the schematics. Nobody has ever, that I know of, ever seen any schematic of Tesla's inventions. But by observing his towers in operation, the Colorado Springs Tower and the tower in Long Island, that was rather peculiar the way both of those towers behaved. And it wasn't indicative of an electromagnetic environment. For instance, Tesla was able in Colorado Springs to take light bulbs and bury them in the ground. And those light bulbs would illuminate under the influence of the scalar energy tower. So he demonstrated that the illumination was possible. Tesla was able in Colorado Springs to create what I consider artificial lightning bolts. How? Well, lightning is always initially is a scalar energy discharge or an arc of energy. So a wave, a scalar energy can produce lightning, and Tesla imitated nature by producing lightning. Now you put all of that together. Um, we observed his two instruments in Colorado Springs and in Wardenclyffe, Long Island, and they were they were just masterpieces. If you really look at closely at what those towers could achieve, we need to revisit that technology.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, so there are pictures out there. And
Yes,
so it's probably just a lot of trial and error of recreating what can be seen,
yes,
and a lot of educated guesstimation.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. That's appropriate. Um, again, Tesla demonstrated this ability to control scalar energy, and many people believe that subsequently this energy was used in experiments such as the Philadelphia experiment. I'll get into that if you
Yeah.
think we have time. And all of this points to another dimension. Scalar energy is a different dimension. It's outside of time and space. So scalar energy brings us into another reality, another dimension. And this is why it's so fascinating. There really are two dimensions, two realities. And the reality of scalar energy, things happen much quicker without pollution. It's safe. So I'd much rather work in a scalar energy environment than an electromagnetic environment.
And so is what is scalar energy's relation to the electromagnetic?
If you can picture a double helix, scalar energy looks like DNA because it's scalar energy. This double helix creates DNA. So if you look at the double stranded DNA, our DNA is created by scalar energy. meaning what? A very powerful scalar wave downloads, creates our genome, and maintains our DNA. So, scalar energy is a double helix. In many environments, that double helix breaks down, and one arm of the helix, so to speak, becomes electricity, and the other arm becomes magnetism. So, if you have, if you will, a double helix, and then you see that double helix break down, one paradigm will be electricity, and magnetism will work in a perpendicular fashion. So that's, if you will, the simple explanation of how all energy begins as a scalar wave, a double helix, and will degrade, will convert into electricity and magnetism.
So really, it seems as though we've taken the electromagnetic field in many cases
Mhm.
and kind of ignored it in many
Yes.
cases. I mean, people. I've been on a huge MK Ultra kick lately. I've been doing a lot of research into the way that they are able to affect our brains. My personal belief is that this is where a lot of the technology, a lot of the
Yeah.
energy from Tesla went
Yeah.
um, to be able to help them with their experiments later on, and even to this day. Um, but there are people out there that kind of, I guess, bastardize the belief of, the vibe, or, the feelings, or this energy that we emit as electrical beings. Um, do you believe that that has some sort of an effect on keeping this suppressed, because it's kind of been turned into this like new agey, like linguistic thing for teenagers?
Mhm. Yeah, maybe that's part of the confusion, perhaps, perhaps. And if you're referring to MK Ultra and other nefarious programs, they always take the truth. They Many of
Yeah,
these programs recognize the truth, and then they bastardize the truth. They change, they manipulate the truth. So you get half truth, you get half lie, and that's where the confusion comes in. And
yeah,
that's what the powers that be want. If you can control the way people think and the way they process information, you have a veritable slave. And this is
yeah,
what we see a lot today. The media is controlled.
yeah,
I can guarantee your audience that the major news networks are not answering to the people. They ultimately answer to the Illuminati.
yeah.
The ruling families control the media, and hence they control the narrative. And this is the way it's been for
Yeah.
for for centuries.
So it does seem as though that there is an entire part of science that, like, we just ignore, because we, like I stated, we are electrical beings, and we emit certain frequencies. And so it kind of seems like we've just completely just done away with that.
Yeah, yeah. One of my goals is to remind people how we're all interconnected. That scalar energy connects everybody. It really is the alpha and the omega. It is the life force energy of the universe. It's from God. And if we go back to nature, I can't be any more of a primal source than the energy that powers the sun and the stars. Then you're unified. It's the unifying principle.
Yeah.
So what's the point here? If we work with this concept of scalar energy, and everything in the world receives energy, information from scalar energy, well, that's the great unifier. Regardless of your background, regardless of your religious belief, regardless of your educational level, everything is dependent upon this life force energy. So one of the aspects of my research will be to unite mankind. Okay, we fight too much. That's the big problem I see in society today. We're fighting. If we stop fighting, we start to cooperate. We'll make great advances.
Well, and a lot of that fighting takes place over resources. In fact,
Yes,
I would argue like 98%.
yes, you're absolutely
Usually
right.
about
So
trade routes, resources, these sorts of things.
yes, And if we have free energy, nobody that I have ever witnessed has ever had an argument or gone to war over the stars. Because there's plenty of stars, there's plenty of star power, and it'd be foolish to go to war or to have an argument or to have some type of monopoly with star power. You can't. There's an infinite number of stars. So this solves the problems that we're facing today. Scalar energy will solve our problems.
So we could finally start to see peace in many places.
Yes, and progress. Yeah, yeah. The world condition today with people so unhappy, wars, rumors of war, insurrection, chaos, riots. We're going in reverse.
Yeah.
We're gonna collapse. You can't keep this up.
So along with some of the other research I've been getting into more so is the effect that non-ionizing radiation has on the body.
Mhm.
Mainly due because it seems as though any independent research, actual scientific research into this subject just gets squashed.
Yeah,
And and
yeah,
it's like I we can't say that it doesn't affect us if we can't do the research.
yeah.
And so what
You're
what
right.
is what is the difference? Because I and many others have concerns of Wi-Fi, 5G, these sorts of things. How is how is scalar energy not like that?
That's a good point because scalar energy is neither electrical nor magnetic. I don't work in that dimension. All of my work is non-physical. There are no electrons in my work, and so these oscillating currents that we're speaking of in this electromagnetic field. That's not my work. It's a different dimension. This is why I'm so emboldened by my work and the work of Tesla. Tesla was working with scalar energy, and I've worked with scalar energy now for years. I've never seen an adverse reaction because it's non-physical. So it cannot produce a chemical reaction. It cannot produce, it's non-Hertzian. There are no frequencies.
Yeah.
So uh, there are drawbacks to using electrical current, and we've seen that. Let's face it. When this, I don't know if your audience remembers when the initial cell phones came out and people were holding cell phones to their ear.
Yeah.
Well, there was a significant increase in the incidence of brain tumors or tumors in general, and people had to make that connection between cell phone use and brain tumors. Many people say that they cannot live close to high tension wires. There's been studies that have been conducted that people live close to high tension wires or to an electrical power plant. There's an increase in autoimmune disease. There's an increase in cancer. So there are drawbacks to using electricity and magnetism. Why are there no drawbacks to scalar energy? It's non-physical. It cannot produce a headache. When has anybody ever said the stars gave me a headache?
That's a good point.
Star energy, starlight cannot produce a medical issue. It cannot produce a medical condition. If
Whereas
my
in
work, yeah, if my work was
this
dangerous,
other
I would abandon this work immediately.
yeah.
But again, it's not electricity, so it's non-physical. There's not an electron or proton involved. Nobody has ever experienced any medical condition from starlight.
It's a very good point. It seems as though that this is, in my opinion, you might agree that a lot of these systems have been weaponized.
Yes. Yep.
Whether that's you know the natural state of these systems, I'm not sure if I believe that, but it seems as though these things have been used against us, and so this would cure it. Your technology or Tesla's technology, or I guess God's technology would be able to cure such a thing as that, and it would do away with these, weaponized radio frequencies, weaponized Wi-Fi or cell phone signals, and I mean, just recently, France got rid of the iPhone 12, I believe, for emitting too much radiation for their country.
Yeah,
And that's amazing.
yeah,
France is,
correct.
well, France is France. My mom said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But um, it's interesting that they're the ones that did that. And so it just seems like this is still an ongoing problem. It's getting worse.
Yeah. You've heard of the Russian government does not approve of the use of microwave in the home
Yes.
to heat food, and they believe that the microwave radiation can cause harm not only to the food but people who are close by that microwave. So there are downfalls here, and sadly, this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, if electricity and magnetism experience entropy, entropy really is the death of a signal, the death of the system, the decay of the system. Well, if you have entropy with a waveform, then you're going to have entropy with your body, and you're going to experience that, if you will, that death culture, or that environment that produces decay or death or degradation, as opposed to scalar energy where there's no entropy. Scalar energy does not degrade. Scalar energy does not experience entropy. It does not weaken. Okay, there is no death with scalar energy. So if you lived in a perfect scalar energy force field, you could not die. There cannot be chemical decomposition. There cannot be aging in a perfect scalar energy environment. You cannot die in a scalar energy environment.
Interesting. Um, I know you've shown the audience a little bit. Is there anything else you can show us with your machines? Demonstrate some examples.
Yeah, yeah. I When I'm working with these instruments, I've decided to introduce to the world what I call quantum healing. It's not biological here, quantum healing, and I'll explain. When I work with these instruments now, I've devoted my work to working with a photograph of a person because a photograph carries a signal. So understand my reasoning now. This photograph of mine carries information. My signal is on that photograph, my signature. I don't work with people, I work with photographs. In the scalar energy environment, a photograph is me. My soul, mind, and body can be imprinted, embedded on that photograph. So people from around the world will email me their photograph. And this is the new science of scalar energy, where you don't work with people, you work with photographs. My photograph is my bilocated version. I can be in two places at once. So whether it's one person or people 20 or 30 or 2 million people send me their photograph, people can be in two places at once in this paradigm. People bilocate to my laboratory. And
Interesting.
when I work with people, I don't work with them in a biological sense. I work with them energetically through their force field, what some people might call the aura or the Akashic record. So if I were to place my photograph inside the instrument, there's so much energy. I call it a chakra balancing. For 1 hour, I experience that type of white light going into my aura or into my chakra through the photograph. Well, for 1 hour, if I do that, people tell me that their depression is lifted, that they can escape some type of drug addiction or some type of a phobia that they've had for years. So again, this is an information system. We don't work in a biochemical sense. We work energetically, and if you will, the new portal, or people can, if you will, bilocate to my laboratory through this portal of light. So you can be in two
Interesting.
places at once. You've heard of time travel. I can prove time travel. Somebody can send me their photograph and they can travel through time to my instrument. And I can access that person through time travel because they can bilocate.
Okay, interesting. Um, and this is something I wanted to bring up because this is something you do for people.
Yes.
This is something that people can get a hold of you and partake in if that's something that they're interested in.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see here. I was getting ready to put your website on screen, be able to provide that for people if they are interested. Um, so
In order in order to
go
prove
ahead.
this to people, we ask people, email us your photographs, just a bus shot, and we'll treat you for free for 15 days. Now, this has never been done before. And that's why I offer everybody in the world 15 days of free sessions. I don't expect people to understand this. I'm the originator. My work has never been duplicated. So if people visit my website, they can upload their photograph and their photograph of their pets or their loved ones. We will work with you for free for 15 days. We'll balance your chakras. We have the ability to identify and eradicate germs, microbes, and we have the ability to download to transmute nutrients. Now we do this all through these Tesla instruments that can send out energy anywhere in the universe, working outside of the electromagnetic spectrum, working in this what some people call the space-time continuum, or the Akashic record, or the matrix, or zero-point energy. It's a different dimension that we access. And the way I access this information is through the information on a person's photograph. There's
Interesting.
no in-person session because I'm not working in a biological sense. Again, scalar energy is non-physical. If it was a physical process, you'd have to be physically present. It's non-physical because I access the information on your photograph. Information is non-physical.
This is your website for anyone who is interested. I have put it in the banner that is scrolling on the bottom below. And this is what it looks like, just to make sure, anyone that wants to go check it out, make sure you go to the right website. And this is what it looks like. Beautiful website, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we work hard at it.
So,
So in a
uh,
nutshell, let me just
yeah,
let me just regroup here. These instruments are unique, hence my approach is unique. I don't think anybody's duplicated my work. In order for me to prove that there's some validity to this, I have to prove it at a grassroots level. There's no scientific group that's going to invent this instrument. Okay? So I have to prove this with people. So this is why I offer 15 days of free sessions.
interesting. So, I know you kind of broke down some of the things that you can do. What is your most popular request for this service?
Many people will come to us and they'll say, I have perhaps I have a case of tuberculosis. And I'm going to explain how I would address that in the quantum field. Everything I do, Jacob, is by way of a photograph. I'm going to hold up a photograph of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It's a bacterium that causes TB. I actually take two photographs and I place them inside the instrument. I'm going to hold these two photographs up. The bacterium that causes TB is held up in conjunction with my photograph side by side. So when I place those two photographs in the instrument, the two photographs communicate. They share information. So the energy of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, a bacterium, downloads or communicates to my aura or into my quantum field. It's all communication. And again, just to demonstrate, that white light of scalar energy will impart the instructions of Mycobacterium tuberculosis into me. So this instrument is an information system that tells Mycobacterium, if I have the TB bacterium, it will identify TB in my quantum field and bring it to a state of chaos, confusion. A,
Interesting.
a magnified photograph of Mycobacterium tuberculosis that causes TB can be located in my information system. And if that information or if that signature is found on my photograph, we can we can bring that bacterium to a state of chaos. Once Mycobacterium tuberculosis is brought to a state of chaos, it ceases to exist. So we don't work with chemicals, that's dangerous. I work with light and I simply bring Mycobacterium tuberculosis to a state of chaos. It's that simple.
Okay. What this might be kind of a ignorant question, but I think some people might be curious. What I'm not even sure if this is the right way to ask this, but what is the success rate, or what is the I mean, obviously, if you have TB and all of a sudden you don't have TB, obviously
Yeah,
it worked. But
yeah,
what is the way to be able to tell, I guess, that it is working?
yeah. I'm going to answer your first question, but first I'm going to preface my remarks. Energy, light is fundamental. Energy, light never makes a mistake. When I tell this instrument to look for the signature, not the chemical, to look for the signature of Mycobacterium tuberculosis
Yeah.
and to communicate that with my photograph, the success rate is 100% because I work with light. I'm not working with chemicals. And when I have two sources of light, two sources of information that communicate with one another, the success rate always is 100%.
Interesting.
Okay. Now, how do people feel? We leave that up to people. And we have an open, uh, if you will, testimony uh, board, a testimony portal in which people can submit their testimony to us. Many of those testimonies are quite favorable. Many people say after we work with them that the symptoms of tuberculosis go away or they no longer have a hacking cough. Now, nobody can prove or disprove my work because nobody has advanced scalar energy to this point. Nobody can duplicate my work. Nobody has my instrument. So if any scientific body is going to prove or disprove my work, they have to develop this instrument. They have to observe the same protocol that I observe, and then they have to perform tests with people, or at least some type of feedback by way of a photographic signature. Now, all of that's going to take a lot of time and effort on the part of any scientific body, and I haven't seen anybody step forward yet.
They
So
probably just want to ignore you.
yeah, okay. Thank you for taking the words out of my mouth. So what am I getting at? Well, for the time being, I'm the only person in the world with this protocol. So I don't think anybody, not that I know of, is willing to spend the time and the effort that I have to prove or disprove my work.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It
Yeah.
just call you crazy instead and just ignore the whole thing and tell
Yeah.
people this is quackery.
But here's the key. Are the testimonies. I could talk all day long. I'd
Yeah.
rather not. I'd rather people go to the website and view our test results or view the, if you will, the PCR tests here. I'm going to hold up a PCR test. A person had herpes. After being positive, having a viral load for herpes for 35 years, this person no longer has a viral load for herpes. There's another individual who had a PCR test, suffered from herpes for 30 years. After sending us their photograph, not detected, no viral load for herpes. Here's a PCR test for shingles. After working with us, after sending us their photograph, no viral load for shingles. Another PCR test for herpes. No viral load, negative, no sign of herpes. So we have many tests. We have probably 4,000 testimonies on the website, which
Wow.
begs the question, why did 4,000 people send our website testimonies? And most of those are very promising, encouraging, and uplifting testimonies. What's the point here? The people are speaking. Only by subjective, but nonetheless, the people, by way of grassroots, the people are speaking. Here's a clinic in Delhi, India. We've worked with over 5,000 people in Delhi, India, the Om Prakash HIV/AIDS clinic in Delhi, India. 5,000 people have sent us their photograph. After these people sent their photograph to us, we received their PCR tests. It's undetectable. Nobody at this Om Prakash Clinic in Delhi, India. Nobody has a viral load anymore. Nobody has a viral load for HIV.
Now, is there anything that theoretically couldn't be treated? There any I mean, obviously if something is advanced to a certain point, there's damage has been done, but is there anything that this doesn't help?
In some way, I think our sessions help everybody to some degree. Let's look at this very objectively. There's many medical conditions. Apparently, there's 40,000 chronicled medical conditions. I don't claim to be able to heal any of them. What I do claim is when people send us their photograph, people speak and they feel better, and that's the beginning of this science. Bear in mind, what I'm doing cannot be proven or disproven by conventional science. Right? You've never sent your photograph to a dentist, have you? No. You have to go in person
Not
to your
willingly.
dentist. Yes. Yeah. So this is not per se Newtonian physics. This certainly is not conventional medicine. This is a new science that the world has to catch up to.
Therefore, this is not medical advice because it's not medical treatment.
Yes, thank you. It's treatment through photographic force fields. Why? Because people can be in two places at once. I never work with an individual. There are no in-person sessions. This instrument is not designed to work with people. It's only designed to work with photographs. This is the new science in which we can work with people through their quantum field, their photograph.
Now, is say if somebody doesn't necessarily have an ailment, could this also, boost a healthy
Yeah,
person?
yes, yes. Consider this. People feel energized. The energy going into this light bulb. For 1 hour, I perform a chakra balancing. Imagine that type of energy going into your mind, your 7 chakras, into your soul, your mind, and body. It's quite powerful. Many people feel a boost of energy. And then there's another protocol that I want to mention. I download nutrition into people, not a chemical. I impart the intelligence of micronutrients. I'm going to hold up glutathione. Some people say that's the master antioxidant. If I were to take a photograph of glutathione, everything is a signature, signals, energy, information. There's information on this photograph. That's the glutathione molecule under magnification. If I place my photograph side by side glutathione, I will receive the energy of glutathione, not the chemical, the energy of glutathione into my quantum field, into my energy field. And so doing, this is how I achieve my micronutrients. I don't take a multivitamin. I receive all the
Interesting.
nutrients that I need through scalar energy by downloading the energy of the nutrient into my quantum field.
Interesting. So, I guess at this point, one thing I do kind of want to point to now, something about myself. I absolutely loathe the new age movement.
Mm.
I think it's entirely disgusting, and I'm talking I'm speaking generally. Um, Obviously, individuals. I'm an individualist. I believe in individual rights, these sort of things. But generally speaking, I can't stand the new age movement because there seems to be a lot of snake oil salesmen.
Mhm.
And there's also a lot of bastardization of certain ancient beliefs or anything with mixed in with like modern Western made up beliefs and all of these things. Do you consider yourself a part of the new age movement,
No,
or do you get grouped in with people like that?
no, I stand out as an individual. My work is exclusive to any group. I don't attach myself to any group. Now, if somebody wants to make some type of association, that's on their part. I work alone. I am the sole researcher behind my company. There's nobody else. There's only Tom. So with that in mind, I don't associate per se directly with any group. Do people associate with me with other groups? Sometimes. But what I'm doing, to be quite candid, is so unique, and these instruments are unique. I really cannot be subsumed under any other group or any other following, if you will. I stand alone in this.
I would definitely say, and there are pockets of people doing other things that are also like that. Um, I've grown just such a disdain for the new age movement because in my opinion, it has been so damaging to so many people. Also, it seems like that's where a lot of the cults come from, like the legitimate cults. And I'm always really interested in making a distinction between things like this that are actually helpful versus some actual made up quackery. Now,
Yeah,
just the very
good point.
fact that you can light up a light bulb without it being plugged in, I think right there, just that alone is enough to distinguish you between made up quackery and something. It should at least pique people's interest to be like, wow, I've never seen that outside of maybe Uncle Fester on the Adams Family doing that in his mouth, you know? Um, so I did want to make that distinction because I don't like actual helpful things, which from what I can tell, my first impression that this is not just some hippie gobbledygook for lack of a better term. Um, I do kind of want to shift gears and actually talk about the Philadelphia experiment though.
Okay.
Um, because I find it incredibly fascinating. Do you kind of want to give just a quick synopsis of
Mm, yeah.
exactly what we're talking about?
Well, the rumor has it that there were scalar energy, um, uh, if you will, instruments on board the USS Eldridge. This is a experiment that the United States government conducted. There was a naval ship called the Eldridge, USS Eldridge, and there were apparently scalar energy instruments on board this instrument. And what as I understand, the government was trying to make this ship, this naval ship, become invisible, or in some way to be able to teletransport. Well, the actual experiment took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and according to some eyewitnesses, the ship, under the influence of scalar energy, developed a green halo, a very prominent green halo. And as scalar energy was amplified, the ship started to become invisible, and then it suddenly vanished. Some people say that that ship time traveled from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, down to Roanoke, Virginia, and reappeared in Virginia. Now, during that time travel, it was observed by the sailors on the ship, it was a naval ship, that they could walk through the hull of the ship, that their bodies became non physical temporarily, and they were able to walk through the ship. Well, as the experiment concluded, some of those sailors were found still inside the ship, the hull of the ship, and they became stuck inside the hull of the ship. So what I've observed in a very strong scalar energy force field, if I'm going to represent my fist um, as a physical mass, during a strong scalar energy force field, that my fist could lose its molecular rigidity and become spirit-like, and then combine with another physical object, because they're both spirit-like. They're no longer bound by the laws of physics of electromagnetic energy. So two objects that were physical can interpenetrate, much like some people say a ghost could pass through a wall. Well, during the Philadelphia experiment, the sailors and the ship were able to fuse or interpenetrate. It's the gift of impassibility. After the experiment ended, both the sailors and the ship, the whole of the ship, went back to their physical form, their rigid forms. And sadly, some of the sailors were, if you will, impaled or incorporated into the ship.
Infused and
Yes.
some really, really horrific things.
It was terrible. And accordingly, this was hushed up. But we've seen, if you will, other incidences of the Philadelphia experiment during some very powerful tornadoes or hurricanes. If you will, a tornado is a, if you will, moving vortex of scalar energy. And some tornadoes can produce that non-physical environment just temporarily, where two pieces of wood can become non-physical and then interpenetrate, combine. And then after the tornado passes, you find two pieces of wood fused together. Well, wood doesn't fuse together, but we've seen that in the aftermath of a tornado, very powerful scalar energy tornado, two pieces of wood have fused together, interpenetrated. So if nature can do it, and that happens with some tornadoes, then the Philadelphia experiment was, if you will, repeating the process of nature. All of that speaks to a scalar energy environment in which physical mass become non-physical. This is why I work with non-physical information on a photograph. It's easy for me to perform the Philadelphia experiment, so to speak, and to take the physical rigidity of Mycobacterium tuberculosis and make it non-physical, or make it, if you will, lose its physical rigidity.
So, because of the way that this works, is there any limitation on how far away somebody can be?
Yeah, there is no limitation. With scalar energy, it really comes down to thought and memory. One of the reasons why the ship traveled from Philadelphia to Roanoke is because the ship was previously in Roanoke. If that naval ship would have been in South America, perhaps that ship would have teleported to South America. So there was a memory to it. There was what some people call the Akashic record. Now, Tesla has remarked that he was inside a scalar energy force field and he found himself outside of time and space. And he experienced that force field, a very powerful scalar energy force field. So this is the other dimension of energy that transcends time and space, in which the physics of scalar energy are not the physics of electricity and magnetism. And hence, when I work with my scalar energy instrument, the scalar physics that I find on a photograph are not the physics that I would encounter if I place my photograph in a refrigerator or in a toaster or inside a computer. No, because my refrigerator is not a scalar energy environment. This is a scalar energy environment. This type of photograph is illuminated, just like my light bulb's illuminated by scalar energy.
So, theoretically, could this be, could, and I'm not sure if this is also the right way to ask this question, but could this theoretically be used for teleportation? Could I go
Yes,
from here literally and just be in South Africa?
yes, yes, you can. Your audience might take a look at Viktor Grebennikov. Grebennikov developed an anti-gravity platform. He was able, with scalar energy, to negate gravity and levitate. And when Grebennikov would move about on this anti-gravity platform, he realized that time stood still. He wasn't subject to time. He was in such a powerful scalar energy force field that he was outside of time. So he was able to move about, teleport, if you will, with this scalar energy platform, and time was irrelevant. Why? Because in a scalar energy environment, you transcend time and space. There is only one time, the present moment. And while Grebennikov was on his flying platform, his wristwatch never advanced.
Interesting. Hmm.
No.
Let's see. And so he was,
Viktor
I just, I,
Grebennikov.
Yeah, I just pulled him up real quick. It looks like he died in 2001.
He was a
Okay.
Russian entomologist, and he wanted to present his work far and wide, but the Russian government would not allow him to release his schematics of his anti-gravity instrument. More suppression from the communists, from the New World Order, and
So
sadly,
this
yeah.
this is who he was just speaking of in case anybody wants to go check that out.
Yeah. But he
So
did indeed have the ability to negate gravity, and he was able to accelerate to the point of 800, what he said, 800, 900 miles an hour. Never experience any G forces because in a scalar energy environment, there is no gravity. So his anti-gravity platform allowed him to overcome G forces.
interesting. I do gotta say, um, it does scare me at the possibility of who has had this technology for so long
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
what they're able to do with it.
yeah.
Somebody
You're
with
right, Jake. You're right.
nefarious intentions is a really scary person.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess that
You're
would
right.
lead me. What what are the known or at least the theorized possibilities that somebody with nefarious intentions could use this? What are some of the ways for them to manipulate this?
Well, as we demonstrated, Grebennikov could manipulate, could control gravity. Imagine what a great benefit that is to mankind, but how that could be used as a weapon against people. So this is a very important field of discovery. It has great benefits, but there's also a downside if it's used improperly. I, for one, will not release the schematics of my instruments. I see that this can change the social order, the economic order, and I want to go about this appropriately. And I want to explain this as I go, and I want people to become familiar with this technology. There's a real learning curve ahead.
Yeah, I would say at the very least.
Yes, just
Yeah,
yeah, that's an understatement. Let's just be
yeah,
blunt.
yeah. Um, so if somebody, for instance, is interested in doing what you have done,
Mhm.
um, you just stated that you don't release the schematics of your invention, and I can't say that I blame you, but how can more people get into this without I mean, is there any way to fast track what you have spent your entire life doing? And maybe it's not a super big fast track, but is there any leeway there to say you spent your entire life? Is there a way to do it 20, 30 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because Tesla, Hieronymus, myself, and a few other inventors have laid the groundwork. It's pretty simple now.
Yeah.
You just duplicate our work. So I'm really not worried about, especially this process that I've developed with quantum healing through a photograph. I simply want the world to sign up for the 15-day free trial, and in a year or two, I want the world to say yes, it works. After that, I want to move on to exploring anti-gravity and illuminating the world. I just don't want to be stuck with photographs inside my
Yeah.
laboratory. Not that that's not a noble undertaking. So, so I'm going to answer your question. Most of the work's been done. Thank God for Tessa and my predecessor, who actually developed this instrument initially, a man by the name of Galen Hieronymus. The work has been done. My website is public. Anybody can visit the website. I'm not hiding anything. No, I'm not going to sell instruments because I know better. But I think the next step is acceptance. You know, I don't have another 60, 70 years in front of me to research. So I need
Yeah.
the world to accept my work, and then we can move forward with other avenues of discovery.
Well, hopefully, through this and other interviews you've done and will do, um, hopefully this has piqued people's interest to be able to even just ask the question.
Yeah.
Um, is So I guess one of my final questions, and we'll start wrapping up, so I don't keep you too long. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about, or would like people to know?
I want this to become very commonplace in our dialect. I want this to become a very, if you will, a household word: scalar energy, scalar light. So how could I do that? Thinking, a thought, is a scalar waveform. Emotion is scalar energy. Now consider, thinking and emotion transcends time and space. Thinking, a thought, and emotion, your feelings, cannot be placed in a box. You can't measure a thought, you cannot measure emotion. They're scalar energy. So what am I getting at? Everybody is a scalar energy expert. Everybody thinks, everybody has a mind, everybody feels, everybody has a heart. Sadly, this is not taught by academia. Sadly, we're trying to wrap our heads around thinking and feeling. Okay, and I know if you're a Greek philosopher, you've done your best also. But to put it into scientific terms, a thought and a feeling is a scalar wave. It has to be. It transcends time and space. You could think, and that thought transcends the universe in a flash. Your emotions transcend the universe in an instant. We are scalar energy beings. God created us with scalar energy. Sadly, the powers that be do not want you to know that God-given gift. Everybody is a scalar energy expert. Everybody has a mind, and everybody has a heart. And the way we think, the way we feel is the world that we create. And our thoughts and our feelings teleport us, and we transcend time and space. And there's no entropy with thinking or feeling. A thought or a feeling lasts forever. You cannot prevent it, and it will light up the world. So this is not esoteric, people. It's simply, you've simply been lied to. And the powers that be don't want you to exercise your scalar mind and your scalar feelings.
Now, do you ever get tired of lighting up those light bulbs?
No, I have to. I have to show the audience something visible. When I
Yeah,
hold my hand here, I feel that energy.
yeah,
Sometimes if I'm not going to do it now, but if I can hold up my cell phone close to the instrument, my cell phone will not function because my cell phone does not recognize
interesting.
scalar energy.
Yeah,
I cannot get this computer too close to the Tesla coil. The scalar wave will override our electromagnetic signal.
interesting. That is
No,
just
I
so
don't get tired.
fascinating.
I have to teach.
Yeah.
No,
So
thank you.
one question I ask all of my guests, it's really at the core of, you know, why I started this show. Um, and I'm always interested to hear people's opinions and hear their answer to this question. Whether, they're involved in my typical realm of activism, politics, or just whatever it is. Why does liberty matter?
Mm, yeah, that's a gift from God. You have to be free. And what do I advocate with free energy? It's liberty. Scalar energy will set mankind free. Scalar energy will liberate mankind. So, in that sense, we're both working under that common cause, and we both, you can see how this is going to unite mankind. It's going to liberate mankind. If we don't have expensive and dangerous energy, if we can transport by an anti-gravity, if we can easily eradicate the signature of tuberculosis, and if we can eradicate the signature of other viruses, well, all those, that's positive. That's a positive step forward. So I ask people to embrace this technology.
Well said. Um, Let people know where they can get a hold of you, where they can contact you, see more of you, um, and let me get your website pulled back up so they can see that again.
The website is scalarlight.com. I've written many articles about scalar energy, and I have other theorists, scalar theorists, on the website. I'd like you to consider email us now your photograph, just a bus shot. The age of the photograph doesn't matter. And let us prove to you that this works through the quantum field. It's not a biological process. On the website is our 15-day free trial. Send in your photograph. You can include your pets. Yeah, but I have 2 dogs. I'm always treating my 2 dogs. And prove it to yourself. You decide how you feel.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And on that note, thank you everyone for tuning in to another amazing episode of Rise to Liberty. You can check us out at risetoliberty.com/links. I am always most active on Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. We've got some really cool things coming up. We've got a debate coming up the day after Thanksgiving. So we might see each other before Thanksgiving. If not, we will see each other the day after. It's going to be an interesting discussion about minarchy versus anarcho-capitalism with 2 super heavy hitters. It's going to be interesting. Started as an argument on Twitter and has moved over into a full-on debate now. So that should be a lot of fun. Hey Tom, thank you so much for coming on and explaining this. And I would definitely like to get you back at some point, and we can dive a little bit deeper into this and maybe get into some technicals.
Okay, I'd love that. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for coming. Everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. If you found this valuable, please share it, hit that like, subscribe, all of the things that we always have to say. And Tom, hang out for a second until we're done. And everyone else, until next time, stay free, my friends.